For me, I think the summer before turning 16, when I was 15 and a half and had my learner's permit, for me, for some reason, that's a very vivid time in my memory. And because I think just the anticipation of almost getting my driver's license and that desire to want to get in the car every chance I could. I was always going to my parents saying, please let me drive, please. Oh, you need to go to the store? I'll drive you. You need to go to the post office? I'll drive you. So there's always that sort of maneuvering on a teenager's part to try to get the car keys, which I just remember being actually probably more vivid than getting my driver's license, because then you get your driver's license and you're like, okay, well, the pursuit is over now. But for me, that was a very vivid time in my life, and also because of I had an uncle who was very sick at that time, who was in the hospital, and so it was my first real exposure to kind of grappling with mortality and of someone close to me, and understanding the impact that had on my family and on his children, my cousins, and it was something that I think I had not really processed before, because I was a child when my grandfather died, so I don't really remember that time very clearly. So this was the first time that I'd really kind of experienced death on a closer level. And it definitely, as a teenager, you get so caught up in your own world and in your own existence that it's those things that draw you out of that bubble that I think really end up shaping the adult that you become, and the way that you respond to them and react to them and take in that experience. It changes you, whether it's conscious or not. You are shaped by those events in your family life, and in high school, there were a couple of students in my class who'd passed away through car accidents and unexpectedly. So it again it's a challenging dynamic to wrap your head around as a teenager, but I think it's necessary in a way to make you understand that this is life, and this is part of growing up and becoming an adult, and it's not something that ever changes. You will deal with ups and downs throughout your life, and so part of why I felt it wasn't necessarily by design that I set out to write a young adult novel. It was just the voice that I kept hearing in my head, is this sort of sarcastic, little bit judgmental voice about this circumstance that they go on this road trip with a man's ashes to deliver him to an out-of-state funeral. She, of course, finds that absurd and baffling, why anyone would want that scenario, and so she's at first making light of it, but then over the course of the story comes to appreciate that this man was a human being, and he had a life, and he had a history, and he deserves respect. And so I love to see that growth in her, and that's part of why I think it was important to have a young character at the center of it. But also, I grew up on John Hughes movies, and part of my, not that I would dare to say that I'm on a level of John Hughes, but that was part of my inspiration for this story, is that I love that he could take a story that is on its face a teenage story, but is actually a story for all generations, because you can watch a John Hughes movie as a teenager and laugh and appreciate it in one way, and you can watch it again as an adult and appreciate it on a different level. And I've been so gratified that the people who've read this book of all different ages have responded to it and found things to connect with. And that was my hope in setting out on this story.